10 years ago or so, I moved out of my house. A realtor friend found these storage units for sale. So this is it. It's about half below ground. It's about in the middle of these. It's basically in the center of those two spaces. So it's 11 feet and 3 inches. So it's the Avalon Co-op, mostly in an apartment building. Found these things, but actually I intended to store my things there, but the second I walked through the threshold, I knew it was more than a storage space. Here we are. So I just ended up getting rid of most of those things and buying this space to start this project in.
Did you say how big your place is?
Yeah, it's 182 square feet. So 16.2 by 11.3 by 10.4. This building is 105 years old, I think now, and they were being used for an accountant's storage room, and they were pretty ugly with drop ceiling lattice kind of thing and paneling on the walls and things. So the ceiling was about at this level, just under the pipe, and so all of that space above it was just wasted, and there was actually a second ceiling a foot above that, and then the final ceiling at the top where my ceiling is now. When I very first started designing this thing or just thinking about it, I was thinking bicycle messenger, 22-year-old bicycle messenger with 8 pieces of clothing and a bicycle and almost nothing else, just living in the city. I drive a smart car, and I guess I like pushing the limit to see what I can do with the smallest kind of thing, I guess, in all ways. So I guess being an engineer, I like to push efficiency kind of limits all over the place because it's just interesting to me. So here's my video lounge, and there's a screen here. I don't watch TV, but I watch, of course, DVDs and things, and plus now that there's flat screens, you can fit this beautiful screen in such a small space, so it almost doesn't take any room out of the building. It's just a partition in a way. So, and of course the cafe level here. So this is my favorite space to sit right here, and I find that a lot of times I stand right here and use this floor as a workspace, and just standing in the window, and that's a really great functional space.
It was important to you to stack.
Well, sure, because I could leverage the footprint of this space and get what I needed out of it. And of course, this is 10 feet 4 inches tall, which is what makes it work. A standard 8-foot room would not be any fun at all at this size, so it's the height that makes it work, and I have the 3 different levels that allow me to get what I need in here. Yep, so here's the bed, and it's just a little over my head sitting. I wouldn't mind a couple more inches up there, but it works really well. It's a little shorter than I am, but somehow it just works fine. My feet don't fight with the box, and it's really comfortable up here. And it's a twin width with about an extra 10 inches. Definitely tight for 2, but workable. So this is just sort of standard bed height from here, and then standard chair height here. So I've got my 2 people sitting space, and this is my favorite spot to sit and cool down. And I've got the window right here and all that. So this is actually a pretty good egress path or ingress path. And the sidewalk is essentially the same level as this deck outside. Let people in that way a couple of times. Typically cost considerations of the driver for small spaces, and of course it is cheaper by being small, but that wasn't at all my primary interest, and it was more I wanted higher quality than I could afford at normal size, and so by compressing myself I could get high quality materials, and also by building it all myself I saved that money as well. Okay, so here's the kitchen. I built this whole thing out of pretty much all IKEA materials. This is a shelf, piece of a shelf. This is a tabletop that I cut up. These are countertop, butcher block countertop pieces here, and the sub top. Again, more shelves, tabletop, different pieces of IKEA, just all custom built. I decided I wanted to do all drawers just for fun, and so I put drawers in front of the sink and had to cut around the plumbing, and then this is a little short one. I found a nice square sink that I always loved, and this is a dishwasher drawer, which actually failed recently. I originally bought a drawer refrigerator, and that turned out not to work, and I found this incredibly much cheaper, much more functional refrigerator. Pretty much has what I need. I didn't really want an oven, so I wanted to use Dutch ovens as ovens. So I don't ever bake, and I just really didn't want an oven. I don't use it all that much, and so I feel like I've substituted for everything that I want to do.
Why'd you call it the pico drawing?
So yeah, pico is 10 to the minus 12, a trillionth. I think that's right. And so just very small. But it has every utility that anybody has. This is a soaking tub, and it's sort of my favorite luxury feature. It'll accommodate too. It's tight, but it serves as potential storage for things like bedding or something like that. I just thought it was a neat opportunity. Nothing's better when you're sick or something to take a bath. It was just a neat opportunity to add something quirky. It was incredibly difficult. Building the frame, I had to build a mold for the concrete.
So no problems walking over your bathtub?
No, not at all. And it was kind of funny. I actually asked their engineering what thickness I needed, and they said 2 inches, and I thought about that for a while and said that's not necessary, and ordered a 1 inch, and it works perfectly. It's completely strong. So, well, this of course is the main table. It's just kind of cantilevered off the wall, and then this is the leaf. It goes down to these feet, and so I can use this chain to extend it out. Sort of enough room to have real dinners, and I wanted 6 people in here, and so I've managed to make that work. And it's all clear underneath, so no kicking table legs and all of that.
And you designed this?
Mm-hmm. There's some really amazing small places out there that have a lot of convertible things, and I actually decided against convertibles because the way I use them typically is I convert, and then I find a way I don't have to convert anymore, and it stays for the next 10 years. So knowing that about myself, I decided to build things in and just build them how they would function, and the space size and everything. So I think this is the only thing that really converts it all. So I've had, in my series of parties, the biggest one was 17 people, and I must say that was ridiculous, but 14 was actually not too bad. And yeah, I just wanted everything just super strong. I don't want anything to break, and want to be able to walk on my kitchen counter and basically hang from any surface in this place. And so it's built that way. This is solid stainless steel and steel frames here. Everything's as solid as I can make it. I didn't want any laminate kind of things that come apart. So I wanted to conserve any of the vertical space. So in doing these platforms, I needed something really strong so I could make it as thin as possible. So I sketched out steel frames. This particular deck is steel with IKEA countertop as also additional structure. So I could get just 1.5 inches to support that level. And I found this local steel fabricator who built all my frames per my sketches, and that worked incredibly well. I actually wanted stainless steel because I wanted single pure materials, and I didn't want corrosion. This is carbon steel with clear powder coat, which is a really good system anyway. It'll keep the rust check and all that, but I would prefer stainless. But it was at least twice as expensive, and it's much, much harder to work with. Drilling holes is difficult, and I was actually glad that I ended up with the carbon steel. And I like the look of this just raw mill skin on the carbon steel. And then I just kind of link things together to keep structural load paths through everywhere, just to again make it as strong as possible. And I just wanted to be able to hang and jump and leap on whatever, so I can climb around on any of this. Nothing is at risk of failing structurally. So this is the closet side, and it's about 4 feet of hanging space. Also set up kind of as a workstation here, and I keep the laptop here. I've been experimenting with music systems, so this one is the second one, and it's pretty good, but it probably takes up more space than it has to, and actually I'm experimenting with a undersized Bluetooth connectable thing there. Closet space, 4 feet of hanger for clothing, and just a little hidden shelf back behind here.
Nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
You seem to be kind of a minimalist.
Well, yeah, that's a bit of a trick. I'm a minimalist, but I have a bike collection, for instance, which is out of control. And it works so well to park my regular racer here. And I've always been a bit of a collector, and that was part of the experiment to see if I could cut that out by forcing myself into the space. This is another bed on top. That was my daughter's bed when she was little. And if ever I need to, it's possible, but it's not enough loft to be very comfortable for an adult. A 6-year-old would thrive. It's an IKEA tabletop piece of glass for the ceiling, and then IKEA bed slats, which are just really nice materials. And this would cost a fortune if I just ordered it custom. It would be thousands, and it's only a couple hundred from IKEA as it with a whole table. So IKEA really comes to the rescue in some of these things as material supply. And then here's the bathroom, and it's got pretty much everything it needs. It's a wall toilet, so there's tanks in the wall. Here's the flush. Shower. I searched the world for just things like this, couldn't find them and had to make them myself. So these are desperate acts of machining stainless steel. On a solid stainless steel bar. This is another thing. My soap holder is laser cut panel with buckets for kitchen tools and a door handle from a commercial door. Here's another thing I couldn't find to my satisfaction, so I made. So this is a piece of a bike shift lever bracket and just machined aluminum. And this similar, it's basically the same design as this thing. It's a off-the-shelf piece of stainless and some machined parts and laser cut parts.
And do you know how to do all that?
Actually, it's a lathe my dad bought when I was in high school, and I built a bench for it, and it sat for the next 30 whatever years, and I hadn't used it until this project. I needed it to do some machining for my plumbing, and so I set it up and connected it to a motor and machined those plumbing pieces, and then it became really useful for other things. And then this is floor wood, which was quite a chore to glue together and make these shelves out of. There's some great materials. This is a 3-form material, and they do a lot of plastics. And I think this is a recycled PET bottles, so basically water bottles recycled as this plastic, and it's just nice to use. And I really wanted this translucent so I could get light coming through into here, and also have this kind of shadow box thing going on. Just feels really peaceful in here because of that passive light.
It just feels it feels a bit boat-like in here.
Yeah, and that's the analogy. To me, boats are the best example of this kind. They're the most creative. Other thing, like I work airplane interiors, but airplane interiors are so restrictive and safety-oriented, and they're regulated to death that there's not all that much latitude. But boats, people just build whatever it takes to make it work. And they're the neatest of all things, I think, better than spaceships and basically anything. And since I'm a generalist, there's people who do everything better than me, but I do it all, and I don't know that I can really master any of these things, but I used to be more uptight about perfection, and then I think over time I started to realize the value of just appreciating the imperfections, I guess, and as long as they're the right kind. Having this not perfectly line up doesn't bother me anymore. There was one time in my life where it would.
And for you, this is really something you love to do.
Yeah, it just keeps me sane, really. I love just building and designing on the fly. I don't draw anything, really. I made a couple of little sketches, but I really don't like to draw. I certainly won't do it the way the world wants me to give a set of plans and then go build to the plans. I would rather not. So this lets me solve all problems all at the same time. This crazy box up here houses a big steam pipe because it's still steam heated to steam radiators. And so that's a big 5-inch pipe running across there, and then up here and 2 other pipes that run off in this direction. So I just insulated it down to the right temperature, and that's my heater. So it's just passive radiator. It works perfectly. The city didn't like it so much. I've got actually ventilation all the way to the roof. And that was a big concern, whether I could actually find a path for some of these things, and I had no idea until I just investigated.
Somebody digging into somebody's floor?
Well, no, it turned out there's a chimney all the way to the roof from here where other people connect to their exhaust duct, and it happens to end on the top of this unit. So all I had to do is get to that. So it turned out to be very easy, and same with the other critical thing was a drain. And it turned out there's a a main drain mast between the walls of this and the next unit, which I could easily dig to. So I was able to get the full plumbing, which was super critical, and get it permitted.
So you had trouble getting permits then?
Right, because it's too small for the code. I did it at risk because if I asked for permission, it wouldn't be granted. And then I got forgiveness. Took 2 years and a lot of, pretty much all my time and money for a couple of years to work with the city to find a way to make this place approved. First of all, I did do it and ask for forgiveness because there's no way I would have gotten approval to do this from the beginning. It just wouldn't be possible. And the first rule is there has to be, I think it's 250 square feet of open space. And then I think there was like this variance that allows it to go down to, I think it was 120. So now working at 120, I still couldn't quite meet it. And I argued that this space could be used plus the space under it and double this square feet. And then I got to my 120 like exactly, and they wouldn't buy that. So that ended up being a scuffle to work through. I'm not saying that people should live this way. I'm not a big proponent of everyone should live in the smallest space they can, though I'm not thrilled about enormous, absurd tract homes or any of that other. I'm just saying it's an experiment that I was interested in doing. And I definitely think the city ought to have a path for approving things more on a one-off at every level. It was a tremendous amount of work. I had to basically become an architect to satisfy the city's requirements for data submissions and things. And it was nuts, but we found a way through. And it's definitely nice to have my certificate of occupancy.